Merry Christmas to one and all, goodwill towards men and to women, and welcome to Uncommon Christmas on Coffee Nick's Movie Picks, a merry podcasting blend of Christmas movie peculiarities and festive coffee drinks. My name is Nick Delaney, and I'm your show host, coffee critic, film reviewer, and the guy who thinks that any Batman story should always be told against the backdrop of a holiday. On this episode, we'll be rounding out the first Uncommon Christmas series with a discussion on Tim Burton's Batman Returns, released in 1992. We'll be pairing this with a review of the Biscotti Testarossa from Gregory's Coffee in Washington, D.C. Please take a seat, stay a while, and let's talk about horny Batman villains over some coffee. For those of you who are just joining the show, first of all, welcome. Second of all, we are currently on the fourth and final part of the Uncommon Christmas series, which is our special holiday review series on this podcast. After listening to this, be sure to go back and listen to reviews for Black Christmas, Carol, and Gremlins, which the Carol and Gremlins ones have some extra special guests on them, and then listen to the show's companion playlist on Apple Music and Spotify, or just use the links in the show notes. Everyone, hello, Merry Christmas officially, because if everything goes well, this is being released on Christmas Day, so I hope you guys are all having a lovely holiday and spending time with some loved ones or just doing whatever you want to do. I have had such a fun time with this series. If you've watched any of these parts, you could tell that I have such a passion for weird Christmas movies, so this has been a lot of fun to put together, and I feel like I've just been more well prepared for this series than I was for the Gretathon series in August. I just had so much going on then, but this time around, I just had the energy, I had the time and resources to do this, and I did it with the video element, which was also new, but I had a great time putting this together, and I hope you all have had a great time listening to it. But we're not done yet. We're not done. We still got this one episode left, and this is a special one. I love this movie, and I can't wait to talk about it, but I have been having a lovely holiday so far. I am officially done with work, which feels lovely. And my final note, I have completely caught up on the Detective and the Log Lady podcast, which I mentioned this in one of the earlier episodes, but I have been really into this podcast. It's hosted by Mike Munzer and Stacey Ponder, and basically it is an episode by episode recap show for Twin Peaks. Mike is a Twin Peaks superfan. Stacey is watching Twin Peaks for the very first time. I started this podcast about 3 weeks ago, I think, and I'm completely caught up now, which they're in like episode 20-ish right now, and each episode is at least an hour and a half long. Some are 2 hours. So I cannot believe that I'm already caught up on that show, and I'm honestly kind of emotional because it's been filling like all of my free time. Like I just haven't been listening to music the past 3 weeks. I'm just listening to this podcast. Even at work, I could be writing something and I'm listening to this podcast. So it's kind of emotional not having just a whole library of the Detective and the Log Lady to listen to, but now I get to listen to it week by week as I should be, and I get to kind of experience it with them on a timely manner. So that's fun. I highly recommend that show. It is such a riot. Stacey is hilarious, and Mike has such good insights as well. The two of them together, it's just like a wonderful show to watch. If you have not seen Twin Peaks, though, and you want to watch it, it is also the perfect excuse to watch Twin Peaks because you can watch it episode by episode and listen to the coordinating episode of the Detective and the Log Lady podcast as you watch the show. So it's kind of just like a debrief, and you get to pick up on things you maybe wouldn't have noticed. It's spoiler free, so go check it out. I cannot recommend this show enough. The Evolution of Horror Network, I will suck up to that podcast and all the affiliated podcasts until the end of time. Mike Munzer is amazing. Anyways, yeah, that's what I've been up to. I'm having a lovely holiday. I like that I have this show because I get to like really be in the Christmas spirit and forcing myself to watch some fun Christmas movies. So, yeah. And I hope you're having a lovely holiday too. In other news, we had two guests on in previous episodes. If you have not checked out the episodes with these special guests, please do because they are so much fun. And every time I have a guest on, I feel like the film discussion is so much better. And that definitely applies to these two previous episodes. So please go check out those episodes. It's with Nick AG, we're discussing Carol, and then my cousin, Melissa, we're discussing Gremlins. They both just have like such great insight into these two films. Please go watch those episodes. They are some of my proudest work in this show. So go check those out. Anyways, let's get into our first segment, which is the Now Brewing segment. This is a luxury coffee discussion and review segment. I do have some coffee here with me, but it's not the coffee we are discussing. Today, we are discussing the Biscotti Testarossa from Gregory's Coffee. So some of you may know that Gregory's Coffee is a coffee chain. This is kind of like a corporate coffee house. But overall, I have a really good opinion of Gregory's Coffee. I think that their menu is constantly very unique and sets itself apart from other chain coffee houses. I think that they always have a very nice and clean cafe. It's always a nice experience going into the cafe. As a company, they are very grounded and personable, which I like. And you can pretty much anything here. You can get anything, and it's usually going to be very good, whether it be like the packaged coffee, a brewed coffee, cold brew, latte. It's usually always good. I usually get the Hall and Oats cold brew when I go there, which is kind of like a, what is that? I don't know, but it's really yummy. But this time I got the Biscotti Testarossa, which is one of their holiday drinks. And this drink is sort of like biscotti flavored with hints of orange in it. And there's actually like a slice of orange on top. But this is like a latte and it has cold foam. What am I saying? Let me just look up how they describe it because it's hard to describe. Gregory'sCoffee.com says, y'all ready for this? We artfully combine notes of hazelnut and almond with milk, add 2 shots of espresso, then top it off with a luxurious mascarpone cold foam, blessed with a hint of orange zest. We are revving our engines. That, I've summarized a lot of coffee drinks on this show. Gregory's Coffee, that is a good, that is a good, that is und good, that is a good coffee description. I love this luxurious blessed with orange zest. That's lovely use of words. This is very good. We are revving our engines. Now, I looked up Testarossa because Testarossa, what does that mean? So let's look up that together as well. So the Testarossa is either a type of Ferrari or it's a winery. So because they said we're revving our engines, I'm guessing they're referencing the Ferrari car. I don't know what biscotti, orange zest, almonds, or Christmas time has to do with a car, but hey, I like it. I like it. I'm not complaining. So I would like that. Gregory's Coffee, if you are watching, why is it called the Biscotti Testarossa? Is it Testarossa or Testarossa? And why is it called that? Did I already ask that? I think I already asked that. Okay, but that's a lovely description either way. So that paints the picture here. This drink, I'm shaking my head, but I'm nodding. This drink was delicious. Delicious. I talk about a lot of different delicious coffee drinks on this podcast, but none quite felt as smooth, as divine, as luxurious as this Biscotti Testarossa. Rasa. This was too good. And yes, this is a tad bit more expensive than your usual latte or other seasonal beverage that you'd be purchasing. But I think that the luxury the luxury. What is happening to my speaking today? The luxury that this drink delivers is well worth the extra price you have to pay. I mentioned that it has the cold foam and it has that orange slice on top. It's just very fancy to look at. It's very visually appealing. There's a picture right here. Um, Audio listeners, go on my Instagram. You can see the picture there. But it also just has such a luxurious taste as well. And like I said, these are just very unique holiday flavors. This is not just like your usual holiday drink that, they're going to give you every year and you know it. It's very unique flavors, the orange, the almond, and yeah, I really like this drink. I think it's very creative, it's very unique, and I think you can count on Gregory's Coffee to always deliver something that's like more creative than your usual coffee chain. I know they had like banana coffee drinks earlier this year. They had a blueberry latte that I tried. They always have like unique flavors that they're putting in their coffee. It's never just the same old stuff that you can get at any other coffee house. So yeah, this is a moment where I'm appreciating Gregory's Coffee, but also this is just like a step above the usual holiday drink. And I highly recommend it. If you're feeling on just splurging, treating yourself, getting something a little bit more luxurious than usual, definitely try out this one. It was delicious. And I can't wait to review more Gregory's Coffee drinks because they are so much fun. With all of that being said, I'm going to give the Biscotti Testarossa Rasa from Gregory's Coffee the Nick pick. All right, it is time to move on towards our next segment on the show, and that is our coffee thought. This is an outlet dedicated to voice my many incoherent thoughts over a lovely cup of coffee. Yeah. Do you like my bear mug? Isn't it cute? I really like this mug. Okay. I am coming into this coffee thought knowing what I would like to discuss. So get ready. Today, I would like to talk about Facebook Marketplace. Mhm. Facebook Marketplace. I am a big fan of giving items another life. I'm a firm believer that one man's trash, or woman's trash, or one person's trash is another person's treasure. I am not a fan of throwing things away once we get our use out of it because someone else could get plenty of use out of it. So yes, I am a fan of Facebook Marketplace because it makes it very easy to give items that are cluttering your house, cluttering your space, another life. And in return, you get a little chunk of change with it. There are also Facebook groups called Buy Nothing, and it's buy spelled B-U-I, and it's buy spelled B-U-Y, nothing. And these are neighborhood groups. You have to be living in a specific neighborhood. These are neighborhood groups where people will give things away for free. So it's kind of like Facebook Marketplace, but no money is expected. That's also a great option. So be sure if you're not a part of one of those groups, look up Buy Nothing and then your neighborhood, and one should come up. But I want to talk specifically about Facebook Marketplace. I love Facebook Marketplace because I am a collector. I like to collect things, Nintendo things to be specific. And actually, I don't think I've ever specifically bought a Nintendo item from Facebook Marketplace, but it is just it's very therapeutic to me to scroll endlessly on Facebook Marketplace and just to see what is out there. What like cool little games or accessories there are. I love looking at rugs on Facebook Marketplace, and recently I've been suggested a lot of clothes on Facebook Marketplace, and that's what's prompted this discussion, I think. But okay, my main point is why have we as a society gotten to the point where we are pricing these things on Facebook Marketplace so absurdly high? We are in the season of giving. the season of giving, not of taking. Let's remember that. Let's remember that first and foremost. I need another drink. So, when I want to buy a Wii U, let's say, from Facebook Marketplace, because I had one at home, but it was thrown away by my father, who thought it was worth nothing. And I need to buy a new one now because it's the only way to play Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. My eye is twitching. My eye is twitching. Uh, when I want to buy a Wii U because of that specific scenario, and I go on Facebook Marketplace and they are being listed for 200, 250, 300, dare I say $400. What is happening? What is happening? I went to GameStop because I'm so desperate and curious to buy a Wii U. And I asked them how much to buy a used one. And they said 120. The Legend of Zelda one, also 120. When your prices are set above GameStop prices, that's how you know this is getting out of hand. Because GameStop, their used stuff, they mark the hell up on that. The Wii U has always been a shitty video gaming console. It's always been not wanted. Maybe because so few people bought a Wii U, it's priced so high because it's just rare to come by. But also, there's like a million Wii U's out on Facebook Marketplace. Why are things being priced so high? And then this led me to look at like the clothes that I'm now seeing on Facebook Marketplace. And I'm all about reselling clothes. I think that there are great vintage clothes stores, vendors that you can go to and buy really neat clothes from, even like redesigned. I know this one art account or vintage seller that redesigns vintage clothes and resells them. Like they add their own little flair. And certain people just curate these clothes and sell them at their shop. I'm all about selling that at whatever price the artists think their art, these clothes, are worth. However, on Facebook Marketplace, if I see a sweater or a coat that looks like you, your mama, your grandpa, and your kid wore it for the past 30 years, and you go on there and sell it, you're trying to sell it for 80 plus dollars because it's LL Bean brand. Sure, that's a nice brand, but you are selling this on Facebook Marketplace. This is supposed to be the land of the bargain. This is supposed to be the land of the bargain, not the scam. It's things like this that just have pissed me off just a little bit, just a little bit. And I think that people are getting too confident with their pricing. I think we need to we need to recognize that the things on Facebook Marketplace, most of the things, not all, is stuff that we're just trying to get rid of in our house. And we need to realize that it's not that we are selling this like it was never used before. We are selling this as a mutual understanding that, hey, you're like scavenging for this particular item and I need to get it out of my house. How about I just sell it to you at a lower price? Because when you're selling a Wii U for more than it was when it was released, that's how I know this is getting out of hand. That's ridiculous. Or better yet, as a collector, I also see this a lot, and I don't go this far. Like I said, I've never actually bought anything. Um, Selling the boxes of game systems or even just video games. Like I scroll by and I see like a Legend of Zelda game selling for $10, $15. I'm like, there's that bargain I was looking for. I click on it, box only. Oh, you're telling me this piece of cardboard from the 80s that I can get virtually nothing out of besides nostalgia, you're charging me $10 minimum. $10? And it's just like the stupidest stuff too. It's like Cooking Mama for the DS, box only, $20. Who asked for this? You know what else bothers me about Facebook Marketplace is when they have a price listed like on the main page and you click on it, it's like, oh, this one little video game here, $5. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I click on it and it's like, oh, actually this one's 50, this one's 40, this one's 90, this one's 30. Be for real. Or you click on it and they're like, oh, you know, $300 for these video games, but you have to buy them all together. And so you get like 27 different Lego Star Wars games, and there's maybe that one game that you're looking for mixed in there. And it's like, oh, but you have to buy all of them for $300 if you want that one. It's scammy and it's annoying, and I don't like it. Okay, let me wrap up by saying this. The last thing about Facebook Marketplace, and possibly the biggest thing, is just the frickin' etiquette on here is out of control. Facebook, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just like not in these social circles, but some of you are acting crazy, stupid, whatever on Facebook Marketplace, and you have got to calm down. You have got to calm down. You have got to stop being so persistent and like really irritating about it. I sound really, really mean right now. I'm sorry. But like, if you've listed something on Facebook Marketplace, you know how aggressive people can be. Like, people will get in fights, they will cuss you the hell out. It is brutal out here. Like, you'll have something listed, they're like, I'm interested. When can I pick it up? What's your address? And it's like, whoa, whoa. You know, like, people are concerned, older generations are concerned about the dangers of dating apps and like how dangerous. Talk about Facebook Marketplace. That seems more dangerous than any dating app, honestly. And then like people will cuss you out if you don't respond to them, but it's just overwhelming and like, or this is the most annoying thing. If you have it listed at a very reasonable, price, which I don't know, maybe I'm also someone that lists things way too high. If you have something listed at a very reasonable price and someone is like, let's say it's $30 for a new video game that just came out that you don't want anymore. And someone comes in, they're like, can you do 10? No. So, Facebook Marketplace, I love it for what it is. I love a bargain. I love giving items a second life, but things have gotten out of control and we need to fix this. Um, I'll leave it at that because we have a lot of other things to discuss today. I have so many things planned to talk about. So let's get into our main event, which is the Now Showing segment. And this is our feature ideological analysis and critical film review segment by yours truly. Now showing in today's episode is Batman Returns. Batman Returns is the 1992 sequel to the 1989 Batman film, and it follows the Dark Knight, played by Michael Keaton, during Christmas time in Gotham City. Batman faces off against the Penguin, played by Danny DeVito, as he plans to make his ascent into high society, and the Catwoman, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, as she enacts vengeance on those who wronged her in her past life. The film is directed by Tim Burton, and you can tell. Okay, there are so many things to discuss about this film, and I know that you know that I could talk about Batman forever. So strap in, strap in. This is a great episode to listen to on your 8-hour car ride back home for the holidays. But I want to start by talking about the context of this film. I think that this Batman film in particular has the most, outer context of any other Batman film to talk about. So I feel like I had to address this. But this film, when it was first released in 1992, was highly controversial. And this is like what this film is known for, really. But if you've watched this movie, you know that it's like at times very sexual and dark and kind of just like odd. It has that Tim Burton flair to it. Tim Burton also directed the 1989 Batman film with the Joker, played by Jack Nicholson. But this one kind of just took a step further into like the zany, sexual, over the topness that Tim Burton films can sometimes have. So it went a bit further because the first film was such a success. I think they kind of like loosened the reins on Tim Burton a little bit. But this film was, perceived as incredibly dark at the time, especially considering the Penguin and Catwoman characters. The Penguin was very horned up in this movie, a lot of sexual innuendos. The Catwoman was she had a lot of sexual innuendos as well. And the Penguin was very dark. I mean, he bit some guy's nose off in this movie. He was eating like a raw fish. He was very, very violent, very grotesque. Um, you know, Parents threw a fit when this movie was released, even though the film was rated PG-13. So, really, technically, kids were not advised to see this movie. Parents still thought, oh, superheroes, this is a kids' movie. Let's take our kids. Um, so, parents were so upset by the contents of this movie. And also, not to mention, there is a brief rape scene in this film, which I'll get to in a second, but that was jarring to me. But so parents were very outraged by this. And of course, because the 1989 film was so successful, oh my gosh, that makes me think of Taylor Swift, 1989. Wow. Because the 1989 Batman film was so successful, Warner Brothers doubled down on the marketing of this film. So you just saw Batman everywhere you went. Batman t-shirts, Batman toys, or, commercials. There was like Catwoman commercials, Penguin commercials leading up to this film. It was like a Batman craze, which I would have loved to be around during that time to see that. But the most famous marketing tie-in was the McDonald's Happy Meal. There were Batman Returns toys with that Happy Meal. And once it came out how dark and how sexual and violent this movie was, McDonald's was extremely upset because they were expecting a family-friendly film, and they pulled their tie-in Happy Meal. And so all of these things led to this film not being commercially successful, and it did not make as much money as they were anticipating, obviously with all this marketing going into it and everything. So that led to Tim Burton not being asked to make another Batman film after this. And Joel Schumacher, he was the one that made the next Batman film, Batman Forever. And that was, thought of as being a much more fun and family friendly film. That was the one with Jim Carrey, is that his name? Jim Carrey as the Riddler and Two-Face. And then later on, there was Batman and Robin, which had Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. Very, very campy, over the top. So the series very much devolved into just being ridiculous Saturday morning cartoons, zany, crazy. Not at all dark at all. So Tim Burton originally had plans for a third Batman film following off of his first two, and it would have been called Batman Continues, and it would have picked up right where Batman Returns left off. It would have had Michelle Pfeiffer return as Catwoman, and it would have focused more on her romantic relationship with Bruce Wayne, and it probably would have focused on her transitioning from a villain to a hero, because it was also it was also rumored that Catwoman would have been getting her own spin-off movie, not the spin-off Catwoman movie you're thinking of. It would have been one with Michelle Pfeiffer, and it would have been directed by Tim Burton. This Batman Continues film is also rumored to have had Robin Williams playing the Riddler. Originally, Robin Williams was really lobbying to be Joker in the original Batman movie, but the role was just really intended for Jack Nicholson, and he did not end up getting the part. So they kind of were thinking that this Riddler part would have been reserved for Robin Williams. But of course, this did not end up happening, and the Riddler, you know, got construed into this completely different character in Batman Forever and ended up being played by Jim Carrey. Um, so Oh, and Billy D. Williams, who was in the original Batman movie, he was playing Harvey Dent. So he was contracted to be in a third movie. And so he would have been playing Two Face. But Tommy Lee Jones ended up playing Two Face. And possibly Tommy Lee Jones gave like the worst iteration of Two Face ever, which, if you're a Batman fan, we know these things. So because of the dark tones of this movie, controversy was, you know, sparked and people were outraged. Parents were outraged. Warner Brothers was upset because they were promised kind of like a family friendly movie. And this Tim Burton Batman universe ended up just crumbling apart. And we ended up with the Batman and Robin movie, which was the fourth Batman movie in this universe. Michael Keaton ended up not even returning to Batman after this Batman movie, Batman Returns. Um, so, and people, Batman Forever was received okay. A lot of people really love that movie. I don't think it's horrible, but it's definitely not my Batman. Hashtag not my Batman. Um, but then Batman and Robin was just completely over the top. People were just done. They did not like it. And this is eventually what led Batman to be a lot more realistic and serious with Christopher Nolan's Batman movies. Batman Begins and especially The Dark Knight were so commercially successful because it was this grounded, realistic take on Batman, not at all campy, zany, over the top comic book antics. So it just was it's like a pendulum, it went very far one way and we ended up the other way. And I feel like now the pendulum is finally starting to be in the middle and we're getting like a good mix of like comic book but also serious Batman, because I think that Batman has to be a mix of those things. I don't think he can be too much one way or the other. I don't like Ben Affleck's Batman branding people and killing people, way too dark and serious. And then Batman and Robin Batman like ice skating and having a Batman credit card, way too zany. So we all know this, I love Robert Pattinson's Batman. I think it's my favorite iteration of Batman so far. And I think it's a good return to form and it's like true to the comics, where it's like slightly over the top, but also very gritty and serious. So, yes, that is the context of this film. Sorry, that was very long winded. To talk about this film specifically, though, I love it. I think it is so great. And I love that Batman almost feels like a secondary character in this film. The film starts with the Penguin's origin story, and it's almost like a reversal of Bruce Wayne's origin story. He is left an orphan just like Bruce, but it's under very different circumstances. And instead of like still being able to grow up, with these riches that his parents had left for him, the Penguin is forced to grow up without any of these riches, knowing he should have them. So any Batman villain, I think the perfect Batman villain is kind of like a foil or a parallel to Batman in some way. So I think that even though that this Penguin, played by Danny DeVito, is incredibly over the top in the best ways, he still parallels Batman in some way and works really well, I think. And then, of course, Catwoman in this movie. Catwoman in this movie is phenomenal. Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman is one of the best things to have ever happened to us. One of the best. And I'm not as much upset that the controversy surrounding this movie caused us to not get an additional Batman movie. I'm more upset that we did not get the Catwoman spinoff with Michelle Pfeiffer, or just any more Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, because it was even teased at the end of this movie that she comes back. The final shot of this movie, which is beautiful by the way, is Michelle Pfeiffer staring up at the bat signal. Again, like it almost feels like this isn't even Batman's movie. Batman just sort of is like plays a role in this movie. This all sounds so stupid saying it, but I don't know. It's just there's such a focus on the villains in this movie, and the villains are handled with such love and care. And I really like that because, if you love Batman, you love the villains. The villains are the best part. And growing up with Batman and playing the Arkham games, I was more concerned about like what villains would I encounter rather than like what happens to Batman, honestly. The villains are the most interesting part. And I love that this movie takes a focus on them. And I think that Penguin and Catwoman are often two. I talked about this in my Penguin review a few weeks ago, but Penguin and Catwoman are often villains that are just an obstacle for Batman to get to a larger villain. So I love that both of them, when they team up, are sort of like a big bad. Like, I love that they are treated as like very serious villains that are worth having like a whole movie dedicated to them. There's no like larger villain like Joker or Mr. Freeze or anything. Like, it's just Penguin and Catwoman, which I think is so cool. And I honestly wish that more Batman movies these days would have kind of like these villains that are often treated like side villains as the main villain. I think they need to be given more time and content. The next thing I would like to talk about, and I'm going to return to Michelle Pfeiffer in a minute, I think, or I know. But the next thing I would like to talk about is the atmosphere of Gotham City in this movie. I think that this is just the best version of Gotham City. And this is, of course, thanks to Tim Burton's vision. Tim Burton is just very creative like that. He is a visionary and just has like these creative ideas, and he has a way of enacting those ideas. Sorry, did I just burp in the microphone? So sorry. He has a way, excuse me. He has a way of enacting those ideas and putting them on the screen so flawlessly. And I think specifically about like Gotham Square in this movie with those big statues of like the chiseled men. He just like, it just feels so good. It's just such a good version of Gotham, and I love seeing the skyline in this movie. And it makes me hate Christopher Nolan's version of Gotham even more when I see a Gotham City like this. Because this Gotham City it feels like Batman the Animated Series. It's just so atmospheric and so whimsical and so dark. It's never daytime in this universe. Whereas, I love the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, but I could rag on them forever and ever. But it was like always, I felt like it was always daytime in that Gotham City, and I just didn't love that. And there was no atmosphere, there was no edge. This Gotham City had a lot of edge. And I think another thing to credit the atmosphere to in this movie is the score, the music by the legendary Danny Elfman, who, if you don't know Danny Elfman, yes, you do. He is everywhere behind all of your favorite little music, cues. It's so good. And it's, of course, taking his original Batman score, but it's adding like a hint of Christmas and just like it's more. And this Selena Kyle's theme in this movie is so good. And he's created these scores for these Batman characters that we still hear to this day in modern Batman projects. It's just so iconic, and he is such a mastermind. And I love the way that he incorporated like these Christmas themes into the Batman score. And the score in this movie, I think, is so important that at times I expected the characters, Batman and the villains, to break into song. When I first watched this movie as an adult last year, I think, I was so surprised at times that I was like, this feels like it should be a musical. The score is just it's scored so perfectly, and that I just like thought like at times like, is Batman gonna start singing? Is Catwoman gonna start singing? it just makes me imagine like a Batman musical that could work. And I think that it could only work under like Tim Burton's vision, because it fits so well into this very stylized Gotham City. But it's just the sign of like a really great score where I'm like, oh, they could just start breaking into song and it wouldn't be surprising to me. But the score is just such a star of the show for me, and it just contributes to this overall atmosphere of Gotham that works so well. Now, of course, first watched this movie as a little kid, and I was scared shitless by it because it is so violent and dark. And I just vividly remember Penguin specifically. Danny DeVito did such a good job in this role. He just like left a mark on any unsuspecting child watching this movie. He really left a mark. I just imagine like him eating that raw fish and biting that guy's nose off, which, by the way, it just shows how kind of maybe not suitable for kids this movie is. The part where Penguin comes down the steps, and there's the part where he bites off Josh's nose. He's the image consultant for Penguin, which love. And then Penguin like turns and looks over at this lady, and he's like, "Oh, I'd like to fill her void and show her the French flipper trick." Or he said, she'd be like, "Oh, that's the biggest parasol I've ever seen." It's, so many innuendos that are like, almost too explicit to be in the movie. And it just, watching this as a kid, I was just shocked. And I was so scared of Danny DeVito as the Penguin. He's just so vulgar and nasty. Um, but Catwoman also has plenty of, little remarks as well. But I think that they are just iconic. I love Michelle Pfeiffer in this, as I said. But, a few of her quotes is, "You poor guys, always confusing your pistols with your privates." She also has a lot of backflipping at one point when Batman, the Penguin, and the Catwoman all meet together at one point. She backflips onto the scene and she's like, "Meow." Just so camp, so iconic. And when her and Batman are fighting fist to fist, or hand to hand combat, Batman like hits her and she's like, "How could you? I'm a woman." And then she, of course, scratches him or something. Uh, and she says, "I'm a woman and can't be taken for granted. Life's a bitch. Now so am I." Beyond iconic. So good. And of course, the banter between Penguin and Catwoman. Catwoman is very suggestive, but she's kind of using it she's kind of like Poison Ivy, where she's using kind of like the power of suggestion to trick them. And when her and Penguin team up, Penguin is like, "Oh, just the pussy I've been looking for." And that's a quote from the movie. Just very outright explicit. I can't even really call these innuendos because it's just so vulgar. Um, but it just shows like how crazy this movie is. So, her and Penguin team up. And of course, Penguin is teaming up with her because he's like in love with Catwoman. And Catwoman is just taking advantage of Penguin being down bad for her to get her way. And I think that Catwoman is like the larger villain here, and she's sort of like playing all of these men to enact her vengeance, because she is just a victim to so many men in this movie that like she now wants to be the one in control, and she now wants to like have the power. And I love that there's this one moment in the movie, and I mentioned this earlier, where there's actually like a sexual assault scene where this guy is sexually assaulting this woman in an alley. And we get to see this moment of, Catwoman being a hero and saving this woman in the alley. So, I like that Catwoman, as ever, I don't think she's ever, just, you know, a true villain. She's never just downright bad. We get to see hints of Catwoman being a hero, which I really like. She's always just this anti-hero, I guess, that operates in these shades of gray. She's never just like completely good or completely bad, which I like that this movie paid attention to. And I think that the Catwoman character specifically provides a lot of like really good and compelling subtext for this movie, about power. And, Penguin is someone whose power was stripped away, and Selina is someone who has been fighting to have any scrap of power, and the only way she can get that is by completely like playing against the rules. I think that this is just really brilliant writing, and I love that. Catwoman, yes, is a villain, but you can very much sympathize with her way more than the Penguin character in this movie. Getting towards the end of our discussion here, one thing I would like to mention is Michael Keaton in this role. I think that Michael Keaton is a perfect Batman. I love Michael Keaton's Batman. He's top three live action Batmans, right next to Christian Bale and Robert Pattinson. But Michael Keaton just walks such a fine line playing Batman of being like zany, campy Batman and also serious, very dark in tone Batman. And I don't think that any Batman performance has been tasked to do that, like Michael Keaton's Batman has. I mean, if you think about Robert Pattinson and Christian Bale, their Batman is incredibly dark and they just have to play it very seriously. And then if you think about the other two Batmans who I'm forgetting right now, Val Kilmer and George Clooney, I think that's them. Their Batmans are just tasked with being completely ridiculous and over the top. So if you think about it, I think that Michael Keaton's Batman is the only one that has been tasked with being both. And he's done a wonderful job of doing both. Because this movie it does still have, it's not like completely dark and grim, like, the outraged parents make it out to be. It still does have really campy moments. There's the circus gang, which is like Penguin's henchmen, pop out in a giant gift box in Gotham Square. There's Batman sends a letter to Penguin after he foils his plan on Batman letterhead paper. He's like, we regret to inform you that the children cannot attend your evil plans. Signed, Batman. Just campy stuff like that. It's not all serious, and Michael Keaton does a great job of doing both. Now, getting into just brief critiques about this movie, I think maybe it is like, I don't think this movie has to be like a 90-minute movie. You guys know I love a 90-minute movie in and out. But I do think like it just goes on just a little too long. I think maybe an hour 45 feels right here. I think so the Penguin, his plans sort of get foiled, and then he kind of comes up with like bigger, badder plans where he's like attempting to steal all the children in the city. I think that could have been cut out just a little bit, and just made it a little bit more, made the story a little bit more streamlined. I don't think anything with Catwoman should have been cut. Keep all of that in there. But I think that we could have sped up the end a little bit and made it a little bit more climactic, because I think watching it this time is towards the end, the most climactic part is when it began to kind of just draw a little bit for me. I also think that Batman is slightly mischaracterized in this movie. And I think that is the price to pay for having like a bit of a zany, very comic booky do-gooder Batman. We don't really get as much nuance to Batman in the earlier films, but Selina ends up trying to kill this one guy, Christopher Walken's character, who's like this evil business guy. And she says it's okay to kill him because, quote, the law doesn't apply to people like him or us. And Batman says, wrong on both counts. Now, I see Batman as someone who thinks he can take the law into his own hands, because, the Gotham City police are very ineffective and they're obviously not doing their jobs. So Batman takes it on himself to deal out the justice in the city. So he obviously does not think the law applies to him. So I don't know, maybe this is just a moment where Batman is sort of like, projecting that he thinks he's doing good and like being lawful when he's not, and Catwoman is critiquing him. So maybe it's more like that, thinking about it. But overall, those are just very minor critiques. And the end of this movie is perfection. I love Batman's final quote where he says, "Goodwill towards men and women." And then we just kind of like pan above the city into the skyline. And the final shot is of Catwoman looking at the bat signal. I think it is beautiful. It's perfect. I love it. And I love that Catwoman is the end of this story. You can tell that they were kind of setting her up to be like this huge character in this Batman universe. So I will always be sad that we didn't get to see more of Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. And this is a Christmas movie through and through, like beginning to end. I think that all of this happens like December 20th to probably 31st. It's just heavy on Christmas. They will let you know the whole way through that Christmas is happening in the background. And I love that. And I think that Batman movies, stories do best. I don't know why when there is a holiday happening in the background. I don't know how to explain it. I'll maybe we could talk about that at a later date, but I think of like my favorite Batman stories, like Robert Pattinson's Batman took place during Halloween. A lot of the Batman Arkham games take place during a holiday. I don't know why. It just makes the story so much more effective. I don't know. With all of that being said, though, I am going to give Batman Returns the Nick pick. A strong Nick pick, in fact. Batman Returns is whimsical, iconic, and in my opinion, the ultimate uncommon Christmas movie. The film feels so true to the slightly ridiculous side of the Batman universe and reimagines the fan favorite characters in ways that are interesting but respectful. The film's music by the legendary Danny Elfman is better than ever, and at times is such the star of the film that it feels like the characters are about to burst into song. While every moment, performance, and character here is great, none quite stand out like Michelle Pfeiffer playing the Catwoman. Pfeiffer gives the performance of a lifetime, exudes camp, and cements herself in the Coffee Nick Hall of Fame. This film is peak Batman, Christmas through and beautiful in every way. I love this movie so much. I love it. If you have not seen it, please go watch it. It is on Max. You do not have to see any other Batman film or watch anything else to enjoy it or understand it. So go watch it, please. It's so good. It's so good. We've been talking for a while, so I'm going to move very quickly into our next segment because we have even more to talk about today. This is Dear Coffee Nick, and in this segment, I'll be reading some letters from fellow coffee and movie enjoyers about their own coffee and movie opinions, reviews, thoughts, hot takes, or whatever. This first letter is from Reese, and Reese says, Dear Coffee Nick, would you help produce a Catherine Newton holiday rom-com? Reese, you are always asking me these Catherine Newton questions where, I don't know, it looks like you're trying to make me look hateful and mean and ill-spirited during the holiday season. This is such a funny question, though. If you've watched other episodes of this show, you know about me and Catherine Newton, which makes the answer to this question surprising, I think. I would. I think I would. We, people are labeling Catherine Newton as like this horror movie queen right now. And I just don't see it. I don't see it from Catherine Newton. So I think that like, yeah, I would want to see Catherine Newton in a different genre. Lisa Frankenstein, I did not like. Abigail, I did not like. I haven't seen that movie where she switches bodies with the killer. To be frank, I don't love Catherine Newton's horror movie filmography so far at all. I do love her in Lady Bird. We know that. Even though she has one line, I think she slayed in that movie. So yeah, what the hell? Sure. What the hell? Sure. Let's switch it up a bit. Maybe we could see something different. I have nothing against Catherine Newton as a person. I just think we need to see her in other contexts. So, what the hell? Sure. Okay, this next question from Reese says, Dear Coffee Nick, what would a Twin Peaks holiday special look like? I love this question, Reese. Thank you so much for sending this in. This is my favorite question I think I've ever gotten. And I've thought about it so much. I've thought about this question. I've really put so much time into this. And it's hard because I don't want this to come across like Twin Peaks fan fiction, and I think it will. But I really fleshed this out. So please bear with me. I'm gonna walk us through. I'm gonna set up the scene here. So the title of the Twin Peaks holiday special would be Twin Peaks White Christmas. And I have it written down here. The special would follow Laura Palmer during the holiday season and focus on the false reality she had to create for the people around her in the midst of being a victim to events that would lead to her death in a few short months. In the story, the audiences would start by following Laura's struggles specifically, her involvement in the town's drug trade, her addiction to cocaine, and her abuse suffered at home and at One-Eyed Jack's. These dark scenes would be juxtaposed with the reality Laura projected on the town, her positive reality. Scattered throughout these extremely dark moments, we would get to see Laura with a sense of heightened positivity as she worked at the perfume counter at Horne's department store during the holiday season, as she tutored Josie, as she delivered Meals on Wheels. And my underlying intention with the holiday special would be to discuss the positive yet delusional reality that people fall under during the holiday season by comparing it to the delusional realities that Laura had to create in order to cope with her various realities. Uh, I have a vision for the end of this episode. It would end with Laura returning to the Palmer house after a long day of delivering meals, tutoring, and working at the department store, along with her other shady dealings, only to find her father, Leland, waiting for her in the living room. Leland would stand up and walk towards her as the record player in the corner of the living room would play White Christmas. The camera pans from Leland walking towards Laura menacingly to the record player. We would focus on the record player spinning. The lyrics, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, play beside Laura's horrific scream that eventually mellows and fades out. The record would continue to play. The record skips. I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming. Sorry, that was very dramatic, but this I was like, how can I like mold Christmas and Twin Peaks together? And I thought of like how regardless of people's situations in life, they sort of create a fantasy during the holiday season of, being neighborly and being generous and spreading holiday cheer, even if Christmas time is especially dark. And I thought of Laura Palmer, the character, in that way, of how she was thought of by Twin Peaks to be a very positive and generous and helpful person to a variety of people in the town, when in reality, that was all just a false reality. And I thought of the song White Christmas. And of course, White Christmas, I thought of like cocaine and how cocaine is such a big part of Twin Peaks and drugs in general. And I thought of the lyrics in White Christmas, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. Of course, anyone that's seen Twin Peaks knows that dreaming is such a huge part of the show. And I'm not saying the show is all a dream, but everyone always mentions in the show like, oh, this feels like such a strange dream, or this feels like such a nightmare. So I thought of like, how can I kind of use those lyrics in the show? If David Lynch wants me to pick this up, I'd be happy to. Okay, next question. Thank you, Reese, again for sending that in. That was such a fun question to think about. And maybe you thought that was, maybe if you're watching this, you thought that was like a corny response, but I don't care. I had fun. This next question is from Cooper. Cooper said, Dear Coffee Nick, personal top 5 from the year. Now, yeah, it is the end of the year. This is my last episode I'm releasing for this year. Now, there are other movies I plan on seeing from this recording until the end of the year, such as Nosferatu and Baby Girl. So those could very well be in the top 5. Who knows? But as of now, I'm recording this December 23rd, my top 5 of the year, which this is a very hard question. My number 5 is Challengers. My number 4 is Problemista. My number 3 is Queer. My number 2 is The Substance. And my number 1 is I Saw the TV Glow. Those are my top 5. I Saw the TV Glow moved me, shook me to my core, unsettled me. And no movie really has been able to match that yet. Even though I love Queer and I love Challengers, they just, I don't know, didn't move me in the same way. They did move me. Don't get it twisted. My honorable mention is A Different Man. To me, A Different Man is a perfect 5-star movie, but it's turned out to just be such a great year for movies. So I wish A Different Man could be in the top 5, but it just doesn't happen to be. I think on my Letterboxd list, A Different Man is number 6 or something. So it's just barely there. So we'll see. Maybe I'll do some shifting around and get A Different Man in there. But I have a feeling that Nosferatu is going to bump everything down a spot. So we will see. I plan on doing a lot of like rankings for the year after I get to see everything and the year wraps up and I get to watch everything I need to watch. I want to do like kind of like a mock awards episode where I make my own awards and I give out awards to movies and everything. So I will discuss more, but thank you, Cooper, for sending that in. It's a good question. And there will be more to come about awards. If you would like to send in a letter, please feel free to write Dear Coffee Nick through DM on social media or email coffeenicksmoviepics@gmail.com. And with that, the Uncommon Christmas series comes to a close. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I had such a great time with this series. I feel like it was such a sleigh. The guests I have on are a major part of that. I think that they made those 2 episodes so great with such great discussions. So thank you again to those guests, Nick AG and Melissa, for coming on. But I had such a great time. This was so much fun, and trust and believe I plan on doing Uncommon Christmas again and again for years to come. So don't think you've had the end of it. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. This was so much fun and I had a great time. Before you go, please be sure to follow @CoffeeNicksMoviePicks on Instagram and TikTok and @CoffeeNick on Blue Sky. There you can stay up to date on everything about the show. If you like what you heard, please be sure to rate the show on your podcast app of choice and share the show with your friends. It really helps. If you're listening to the audio version of the show, check out the video version using the link in the description. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, goodwill toward men and women. Thanks again for listening to Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Our opening theme is The Moondrops, and our closing theme is March of the Hares, both songs by Nathan Moore. Before you go, please be sure to follow the show on social media @CoffeeNicksMoviePicks on Instagram and TikTok, and give the show the Nick Pick by rating it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks again, and see you next time.